Thank you. The next question is a bit unusual, but I assume somebody in the Civic Association had a reason for it. Janet, we'll start with you. How can Newcastle County government be made boring?
Somebody said to me today, why would we want to have a county that's boring? Why wouldn't we want to have something that's thriving? I think we need to have communication within this county. We need to have trust between the branches of government, and I think when that happens, when we talk to each other, we will be a much more boring county. We in council have meetings based on each department at least once a month, and some of them are twice a month. In the last 2 years, we have canceled more of those meetings because there is nothing on the agenda than we ever canceled in the first 2 years that I was on council. So communication is a big thing. It doesn't make it look like there's something going on behind closed doors.
Thank you. Mike?
I'm not sure who wrote the question, but there's always a smart guy in the audience, right? I guess when you're born, you mean no scandals? Whoever wrote that question. Again, I'll go back to what I said about 10 minutes ago. Governments need to choose carefully and execute relentlessly. Now, if that's boring, I'll take a lot of boring. But the kind of choices we have to make in the next few years about the future of this community is going to be stimulating. Sometimes adversarial. But as long as you're moving forward, we can have those communications. We have those arguments. Not fist fights, not scandals, not finger pointing. Because that is the Delaware way. You come up with something that doesn't work, you blame the guy other stuff when it doesn't, you raise taxes to try to correct it, and you move on to another program with a new acronym. It doesn't do the same, doesn't do anything either. I'm talking about innovative things that county council can do with whoever the executive is, Democrat or Republican. It's optimism I have that I know it's just got to get better. So I'll take boring, I'll take stimulating, as long as we're moving forward. That's all I really want. I mean, we've had some scandals in county government, let's face it, but no more of that.
Okay, thank you. Do we have time for questions? Any questions? All right. These are some questions from the audience. We'll start with Mike.
Yes.
Will you proactively support the community and civic organizations as well as the Hockessin Design and Review Advisory Committee? How?
Oh, sure. Every citizen group possible. I mean everyone, anywhere is important. Because elected leaders, I mean, sometimes they're the trophies out in front, but the people who get the job done are the community leaders. I mean, it's no different in the military. You have officers who are in command, you give orders, you set up the structure. But it's the NCOs, non-commissioned officers, and the enlisted troops who do all the work. And that would be the civic leaders. So every possible entity that has a positive agenda, I'll participate, I'll help you get set up, I'll do whatever it takes. Because civic involvement is on the decline, unfortunately, and social ills are on the way up. You know, in my day, being part of PTA, Boy Scouts, school volunteer was the name of the game. Most people did that. Now that just doesn't happen. So any civic group, at any level, anywhere, I am in favor of. If you want to move your community forward, count me in.
Thank you. Janet?
I think over the past 4 years and probably 12 years before that, I've attended every civic meeting that has gone on unless I had a conflict and could not. And then in many of those cases, my aide, Nellie Manlove Hill, goes for me. There are always conflicts that you can't attend every single meeting, but I know most of the people within each of the major umbrella groups, GATA and the new one that we have in White Clay that replaced the Henderson Union. Know many of the people within the civic associations. Not only do I attend their meetings and would continue to attend their meetings, but on places like DRAC, we have been short in this area with members of the DRAC dramatically short, and we cannot get the county executive to move off first base. They've got 3 names in for nominations, and we have been able to get 1 through. Beyond that, I know that places like the DRAC have problems with planners. We are losing another planner. She's moving to Boston. I just had a conversation with the general manager of the Department of Land Use today, and she guarantees that the DRACs will have coverage, even if it's a matter of dividing up some of the planners that are there until they get another planner. So I believe that I am on top of the things that are going on with all of these associations, even if I can't attend every single meeting.
Okay, thank you. The next question, we'll start with Janet. Should new public and charter schools have exemptions to traffic impact studies? What improvements do you suggest should be made to accommodate the increase of traffic on these roads?
Schools are a state issue. Schools are sacred under the state law. If a school decides they want to go someplace, they're going to go there, and nobody is going to stop them. Should there be traffic studies? Absolutely. We have a new MOT charter school that's going to be built in the Appaquinimink area. They are under the first TID, Transportation Improvement District, that we have in this county. It's a regional study. You take an entire region, not a block, not 12 lights out. You take a whole region and you study, DelDOT and the county together look at this, and they study what the build out will be for the next 15 to 20 years. Assuming that build out in those zoning categories, they come up with what the transportation numbers are. They're trying to do this to eliminate an TIS in every single project that comes along, whether it be school or anything else. If something dramatic happens within one of those zoning categories, after they have studied it, they always can make that change. But along with that, they know how much in today's dollars and project it out into tomorrow's dollars, what that's going to cost. And everybody then that builds within that TID is charged a proportional amount that goes into the transportation, that goes for transportation. By law, they now with TIDs have to escrow all of the funding that comes in. So if you estimate that it's going to be $40 million to build this out, if $20 million comes in from the development in that area, DelDOT will then put up the rest of the money for that. It's a new concept. It works in other areas. It's a new concept here. We're going to have to kind of monitor it and see where it goes. Transportation studies are an integral part of everything that goes on here. What people have to understand. Thanks.
Mike, should new public and charter schools have exemptions to traffic impact studies? What improvements do you suggest should be made to accommodate the increase of traffic on these roads?
I'll hold my fire. There should be traffic studies for everything we do in this county, just as there should have been for Barley Mill, Stolz. I mean, it's ironic to hear how valuable they are now for a charter school, but something the size of the state of Rhode Island didn't have one. So I think everything, it means gradations. I mean, obviously, some traffic is worse than others, but the average Delawarean spends almost 100 hours a year looking out their windshield. That's non-productive time. Not to include the amount of pollution. Children with asthma are facing those problems. Gasoline that we're burning for no reason. This doesn't shut down the world. But again, my previous employment when I was flying, we never launched when we couldn't recover. So don't build if you can't sustain it. When I go buy clothes, I don't buy 32 waist anymore because I don't fit in them. It's the same with our roads. Everything needs to have traffic as a condition. And the state needs to step up and fund those things. You should, if you're going to go down the wall for a jug of milk, it shouldn't take you 35 minutes to go a mile and a half. Thanks.
And Mike, this question will start with you. In the preliminaries to County Council's vote on the Barney Mill Plaza rezoning, do you believe that County Council's attorney was obligated to advise Council that voting on the rezoning before considering DelDOT's traffic analysis would violate Delaware state law in Article 11 of the county's UDC, whether or not Council asked for that advice?
I don't mean rude, but you have to say a little slower on that.
Sure. In the preliminaries to County Council's vote on the Barley Mill Plaza rezoning, do you believe that County Council's attorney was obligated to advise Council that voting on the rezoning before considering DelDOT's traffic analysis would violate Delaware state law and Article 11 of the county's UDC, whether or not council asked for that advice.
I'd rather beat this on, ask you to repeat it several times, because I don't know what Article 11 is. I don't. But here's what I do know. Thanks. But thanks for your patience. Here's what I think should have happened. I don't have Article 11 in front of me. I'm not going to take the time to read it right now. County council should have not acted on this proposal without a traffic impact study. That much I do know. If your attorney asked for that guidance, you should take it into account. But regardless, the reality is you should not have voted on that affirmative or denial without that traffic impact study. I'm not sure that answers your question because I don't know what Article 11 is. But the traffic analysis is an absolute paramount importance for the neighborhoods nearby. Like I said, this project would have choked the roads for miles and miles. So as I look at this, I can't answer it because I don't know Article 11. But yeah, there should have been the guidance received from the county council attorney, but I can tell you, you should have had a traffic impact study. That's as simple as I can make it.
Thank you. Janet, here's the question.
I read part of this question, I think it was given to us, and I understand some of it. I don't know what Article 11 is either, but let me just say that at a certain point, because of constitutional property rights laws, you have to vote on these things. As I said, there was no third choice to leave it as it is. This property was already approved for 1.1 million square feet of office space and had traffic studies to go with that. I will leave, if Mark wants to take these in the back of the room, my worksheets that I had when I looked at all of the traffic numbers as well as the square footage that was going into Barley Mill. The problem with this question is that we did not break the law. And let me read this to you. This is from the Chancery Judge. I address the question, must the council review a traffic study before approving a rezoning and development plan that will bring large-scale changes to the property and surroundings of the roads that service it? Whatever the aspirational answer from a good government perspective, the legal answer is no. So long as such consideration is not required by law and so long as council's decision to forego a traffic study is not arbitrary and capricious. This post-trial opinion considers the rezoning of Barley Mill Plaza in the absence of a traffic study. I find that neither the applicable statutes nor Newcastle County's own code require the council to consider a traffic study in connection with the Barley Mill rezoning. And he does find then that one vote was arbitrary and capricious because 7 votes is the majority. When you take one way because it was arbitrary and capricious, you are down to 6, which means that there is no majority. It comes out then 6-6 because that vote was completely nullified. We have concurrency in Newcastle County, and concurrency says that within this process that is set up with 2662, which is referenced in here, you have to have an MOU. You have to have an understanding and signed with the Department of DelDOT. Newcastle County has that. We have concurrency, which means if you don't do what DelDOT says, we don't give you the permits, and that makes your property useless.
Thank you. This will be the last question before the closing remarks. And we'll start with Janet. Is County Council entitled to assume, while contemplating a legislative act, that its attorney would give timely advice if proceeding on that path would violate applicable state and/or county laws?
That's the same question.
That's the same.
That's the same question.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that at all.
That was like part 2 of the first question.
Your first.
Just go to the next one.
Do the next one. Do the next one.
One more? Okay. The contracts between Newcastle County and the 2 sports clubs in Hockessin greatly reduces the maintenance cost to the county and provides services to the children of Hockessin. Had 2012 revenues in excess of $800,000 as a nonprofit, HSC became Delaware Rush, a franchisee of a national soccer organization. It had a protected area with a radius of 60 miles. They will take out-of-state children for teams. In Hockessin, they use county and state park property for their playing fields for $1 per year. Considering Delaware Rush's financial situation, the projected membership increase, the future impact on parking, do you think it would have been appropriate to have a public discussion prior to approving a new park lease contract at both the county and state level? Please explain why or why not.
You get that first one?
I think so. You're first.
I know soccer and I know baseball. And I know that we have county parks and we do lease them. And we lease many parks, and then all of the capital improvements within those parks is done by the team. I don't know that there's anything in the code that, and I can check, but I don't know that there's anything in the code that says you have to have a certain amount of money in order to lease our park. Do you have too much money? Do you have too little money? Down on Route 9, we have a whole indoor complex that a soccer team has put up down there, and they lease like everybody else. So I don't quite get where this is going, other than that soccer is rich and has money that comes from someplace else. I don't quite know. I guess I'm not understanding. I mean, I'm seeing that as the problem. I don't know that we've ever faced this before. I mean, you know, Rush is one of the national soccer teams, so I guess they now have franchises, like little lower teams. I don't know where we're going on this.
Well, Hockessin soccer is now Delaware Rush.
Right, I got
Which
that.
means it's not just a Hockessin team anymore, it's a bigger area than just
Right.
Hockessin. Hockessin parks are being utilized by them at $1 a year. And I just didn't know if there was a public discussion before that had been the lease had been reapplied after Delaware Rush was organized. They're bringing kids
There was no public discussion.
Kirkwood did the
Yeah,
same.
they're bringing kids in
Kirkwood
from
does
out of
the same.
state in addition to the kids local.
So the question is, should there have been a discussion?
Yes.
What's that?
Do you think it would have been appropriate to have a public discussion prior to
Yes.
approving the
Yes.
new park lease contract at both the county and state levels?
Yes, we should have had a public discussion. This is one of the things. This is one of the things that I talked about when we have this Department of Special Services and Community Services. One owns the park land and one does the contracting for the land. We have meetings with those people all the time. You would have thought that maybe if this was something that they felt was in the least bit out of the ordinary, that they would have brought it to council. I didn't know until I read someplace else that the soccer team had even changed their name. You know, so is this something that we should go back and address? I would say, yeah, we probably should, and talk about it and see if there's some criteria that needs to be changed.
Thank you.
Mike, would you like to respond to that?
Since I don't have the burden of legal education, and I see people with their eyes glazing over, discussion is always a good thing, particularly that some public property or some benefit that's from a group that seems to be thrown out of its local element, yes.
Okay. We're going to go on to the closing remarks. We'll start with, I think we started Janet and Josie. So Mike, would you like to give the closing remarks?
Folks, thanks for coming out. And those questions at the end, I'm going to change my closing, but I thought I was going to say a little bit. Again, I don't have the burden of legal education, and I did not ever want to go to law school. I admire those who did, but some of those questions kind of got in the weeds. But what I do have is a copy of the Constitution with me. And nowhere in there does it say property rights extend into my backyard because traffic is going to be so bad you want to move. Those property rights stop at my property line, is the way I interpret it. So when I hear things about constitutional rights, it's right up here, somebody can find that for me, to where bad projects can go so far in the government process without any sense of reason. And I'll throw this in there, when I was flying, when you come in from the southern parts of the United States up into New York, you fly right over this place. And at night it's so easy to find out where the congestion is. I'd like to bring a Del person, when I was doing it, with me in the jump seat. It looked like little white ants everywhere. Those are where the lights are. Those are where the problems are. And it's so predictive. Yet every year we have the same failed roads, the same problems, and we have people in government deny their votes, deny the impact of what they've done, and we're stuck at zero again. I'm asking for your vote if you're a Republican in this district next Tuesday to move forward. I want optimism, some new ideas within government, and acknowledge the real financial problems we have, not the things that grab headlines that don't address fundamental issues, and move ahead. This community is where I'd like to retire, I'd like to stay forever. We're at a tipping point. We can decide to move back and decline, or move ahead. The voters have to make that decision. What will alter that status is who you elect. It's clear and simple. I'm asking for everybody's civic involvement, regardless of what party you are, but that's what this is all about. Moving this community ahead. Save neighborhoods, viable communities, not sitting in traffic lights forever from bad government decisions. But I do it because I'm really optimistic. I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps doing everything I could possibly think of doing. Enjoyed every minute of it. 25 years in the airlines, going to places I couldn't pronounce, didn't know what time zone I was in, and I didn't care. But I was serving my country, serving the airlines, serving my passengers, and doing it really well. I want to do the same thing as your county council person. Thanks for coming out. I really enjoyed it. Janet, thank you also. Everybody, this is a great time to be in this district, but we have a lot of challenges ahead. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you also for coming. I have a few things that Mr. Protack has said that I would just like to address. The Delaware way. The Delaware way many years ago was that everybody talked to each other. We have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have a variety of parties right now, and we don't talk. And again, conversation goes a long, long way. I'm sure if any of you have read the paper, you've noticed over the last couple of months that I have questioned a lot of things about this administration. They all have to do with money. My job is to question the administration. I am in the branch of government that is the check and balance of the administration. That's what we're there for. I expected to have a primary. The county executive has been threatening me for 1.5 years that if I didn't come in line, I was going to have a primary. I see people from the administration in this room that have accompanied Mr. Protack here tonight. I want to tell you that I am very, very upset that a councilman pulled me into his office 2 weeks ago and told me that my phone was tapped and my computer at work is being monitored. This is not the Delaware way. This is not the Delaware that I moved into. And I would certainly like to see this get better, because I can't imagine at this point that it can get worse. I will continue as your council person to question the administration. That is, again, what my job is. It is not to be a yes man for this administration. I want to thank you for coming. I'm as happy as I can be living in this district. I love the people that I have met. I have been door knocking for hours and hours and hours. I've lost 5 pounds and I'm staying tan, so that's the good part of it. I will continue door knocking until the day of the election. And I certainly hope all of you come out to vote. I would humbly ask you to consider me when you do come out to vote. I believe that I have been a watchdog for you in the 4 years that I've been in this office. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both the candidates. Thank you all for coming out this evening.
Unbelievable.